Well, I got to tell you, I'm coming away a little bit disappointed with that one tonight. I feel like that game was just not as fun as I had cracked it up to be for sure. I was saying that this could be a really fun game to watch, and it really just did not turn out to be that. I just think that there was a lot of things at play here that we're going to have to go through, right? Obviously, I think that the Commanders looked really bad. Like, I think that this was probably the worst I've seen their offense with Jaden Daniels. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic whatsoever. I think this was a legitimately probably the worst performance I've seen from Jaden Daniels in his entire NFL career. But before I go into it, like the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support for this recap right here. But yes, I do think that this is probably the worst that I've ever seen Jaden Daniels before. So Jaden Daniels throws 42 balls tonight and only completes 24 passes. So if you did not watch the game, this was a situation to where, honestly, like when you watch the game, the Green Bay defense was taking everything they had and throwing it right in Jaden Daniels' face. Like Jaden Daniels legitimately had like no shot against that defense. They were all over him tonight, which tells me a couple things, right? Number one is it tells me that the Packers defense is for real. It is definitely for real. And I would say that the Packers defense is going to be one that you're going to have to keep an eye on for the rest of the season. Because, like, obviously, coming into tonight, a lot of people were kind of split on the Packers defense. You know, half the people said, you know, with Washington coming to town, you have to factor that in because they're good. And at the same time, you want to be able to give Green Bay the respect they deserve defensively. And I kind of found it in the middle to where I was like, I agree with both points. I think that I'm leaning more towards the Packers being a solid play because of one reason. And the reason why I said I liked the Packers defense ultimately this week in fantasy was because of the weaker offensive line and the pass rush that the Packers now have with Micah Parsons. I mean, they have a legitimately brutal and deadly pass rush. And Jaden Daniels caught the worst of that. So Jaden Daniels, you know, through the majority of that game, it looked like he was not going to salvage much in fantasy, but he ended up salvaging his day. He had 2 touchdown passes, 17 yards on the ground, didn't do very much. And like Jaden Daniels, he does not make mistakes. Like he is a guy that really just does not play sloppy football. He's going to be a guy that's going to check the ball down before he does anything else. Like, he's not going to throw it into harm's way. He'll check the ball down or he'll just get rid of it. So from a fantasy perspective, like, it was so funny. I was talking my wife tonight. It's her first time playing fantasy football. And she was like, I feel she has Jaden Daniels. She's like, I feel like dropping Jaden Daniels. And I was like, honey, if you do that, like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, that would be one of the worst moves ever. Because even in, like, one of his worst games I've ever seen him play in, he still ends up with, like, 17, 18 fantasy points. So Jaden Daniels is going to be fine. This was one of the toughest defenses, honestly, that he's going to play. The Packers defense, guys, I think their whole team as a whole is really good, but that defense in particular, man, that defense is something else. I got to tell you, I think that defense is going to give a lot of good offensive fits. So for a lot of the season, I would not be surprised if the Packers find their way inside the top 10 of my defense rankings in fantasy. Now, getting into the running backs. Okay, so this one obviously merits discussion. So if you did not watch the game, I was texting a buddy like probably 20 minutes ago because it literally all just unfolded at the end of the game. I was texting a buddy that, so if you didn't watch, Austin Eckler went down. And he went down to a non-contact injury. And it looked like, you know, usually when it's an Achilles, they'll show you what happened. And then you can make a pretty clear determination. Because, you know, in that calf area, you'll see just something snap. And that's what happened with Austin Eckler tonight. So he needs assistance getting off the field and he gets carted off. And I sent a General Patton salute to my buddy tonight because I said, I think that was Austin Eckler's curtain call. And listen, as excited as I'm about to get about Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, this one does require respect. Because in fantasy football, Austin Eckler was elite for a long stretch of time. So Austin Eckler wasn't just like, he wasn't always like this, right? He wasn't always just standing in the way of a younger player we all want to see break out. This year, he was annoying through 2 weeks. But Austin Eckler in his prime, I mean, that guy was dominant in fantasy football. So, from a fantasy perspective, Austin Eckler, we salute you, brother. Speedy recovery, but I don't think he'll ever be the same. I think this could have been his curtain call. That being said, Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt, he is a guy that is going to be discussed a lot this week because here's the problem, right? Conventional knowledge and just people's first instinct when they see Austin Eckler is going to probably miss the rest of the season this year would be to immediately say that Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt wheels up, right? Like, we're getting into Bill Crosky season right now, and he goes in your starting lineup immediately. Well, I have a couple things to say about that. Number one is that I put Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt inside my top 30 running backs this week. I got that one very, very wrong. I mean, they gave him no work. 4 carries for 17 yards versus this Green Bay defense, and that was it. He got a couple off-target throws from Jaden Daniels under pressure as well. Like, it was bad. Like, they barely had him on the field. And even when Eckler went down, Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt was not immediately on the field. They put Jeremy McNichols out there in those no huddle hurry-up offenses. So I would pump the brakes on Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt being the immediate, wheels up type of guy that you just need to throw out in your lineup. I would love him to be that, but after tonight, I can't say that. Now, on the other hand, I do believe this speeds up his timeline. Because if you didn't see this, a couple days ago, we got a report that, I think it was from like Adam Schefter or something like that, that Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt would eventually be the team's starting running back at some point. Now, if you're buying into that, which I am, like I do think that's inevitable at this point, especially now, this speeds up the timeline. Like Austin Eckler's injury will definitely speed up the timeline for Washington to make Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt their lead back. So my point on it, and I was saying this all week, and now more than ever I stand by it, you cannot trade Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt right now. You have no idea what his true value is going to be. So what you're going to get is you're going to get a ton of offers for Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt over the next couple days because of the bad performance tonight and the lack of performance tonight, rather. And you need to reject all of them. Like, I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that. Unless they're off, if someone comes to you with like Christian McCaffrey for Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt and like Drake London, yes, like take that offer. But if someone's coming to you with James Conner for Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt, you need to say no. We don't know what the true value is, and we won't know until he fully gets a workload. And we could be a week away from that, or we could be several more weeks. Bottom line is Bill Crosky, Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt, you want him on your team, and I would say reject most offers that you get if you are a Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt owner this week. Adam, appreciate the super chat. I see it. Let me go through the breakdown, and then I'll get to your question. So that was the running backs. Now, the pass catchers, obviously Zach Ertz continues to be Jaden Daniels' safety blanket. And listen, there's nobody who doesn't want to see that more than me. Like, it's not even, like, I don't dislike Zach Ertz. It's just, like, he's so old, he offers very little after the catch-up side. And to me, it's like, maybe Ben Sinnott is that bad. But, I mean, I would just want to see Ben Sinnott out there and do something. Because this guy, like, from a dynasty perspective, is basically coming up on worthless at this point. So it just continues to boggle my mind that Zach Ertz remains the top safety blanket / top tight end in the Washington offense for Jaden Daniels. But that being said, like, he clearly is, and you have to respect that. So you have to keep that in mind when you're ranking Zach Ertz as a tight end and thinking about playing him. Because Zach Ertz is, in reality, going to have several more performances like this year if he stays healthy. So Zach Ertz is still, I would say, a bottom-tier tight end 1 in fantasy football. Now, Terry McLaurin, I said this earlier in the week. I said it earlier tonight before the game. Terry McLaurin will get more touches as time goes on, and we saw it tonight. He had 5 catches for 48 yards, so nothing outstanding, but this guy is on track to start being more relevant in fantasy football. And listen, it's different this year because Deebo Samuel is legitimately looking like some of his old days in San Francisco. Like tonight confirmed that as well. And I get it. Deebo Samuel's stat line at 7 catches for 44 yards and a touchdown. It's not like he's breaking the bank, right? Like you're not writing home about that to anybody. But I will say that like Deebo is being used very similarly to how he was in San Francisco, which is a recipe for success. And he looks explosive. Like even just on the touchdown catch that he had at the end of the game, he broke tackles like Deebo Samuel used to do. Last year, he wouldn't have broken those tackles. He would have been stopped short. This year, he's healthy, he's hungry with a new contract, and he's got a fresh start. So it all just kind of goes back to what my prediction was before the season started, which was that Deebo Samuel was going to be a guy that you wanted on your fantasy football team. And so I do think that there is definitely credence to the argument that Terry McLaurin just doesn't have the same amount of upside that he did last year because Terry was the only guy. I mean, that was the only guy that they had aside from Zach Ertz. But anything downfield, it was Terry McLaurin. Well, this year, they don't have to go as much downfield because they have Deebo, who is great in space. So I do think that Terry just doesn't have the upside that he had last year. And Deebo definitely, I would say, has more upside still at this point than Terry McLaurin does. Either way, I would say they're both guys that you can consistently start to count on in your lineup. Like Deebo is a guy for me. I was already there this week because I was early to the party with Deebo all offseason. Like I was big on Deebo all offseason. He was one of my most drafted players this year in fantasy football, and it's paying off. And Terry McLaurin is at the same time a guy that I didn't like, but I am acknowledging that, like, of course, you could probably put Terry McLaurin in your lineup without fear starting in week 3, I would say. That was kind of it for the receiving options. There was some one-off targets to like Luke McCaffrey. Noah Brown had a couple big drops. He looked bad. I just don't see the intrigue with Noah Brown. I could easily see a world where either Luke McCaffrey or Jalen Lane makes a depth chart leap over Noah Brown. Noah Brown does not impress me whatsoever in that offense. So I think that he is definitely one of those guys that doesn't make a ton of sense to me to have as your wide receiver 3 on an NFL team. But that being said, for fantasy football purposes, I would say if we see the day where Jalen Lane or Luke McCaffrey hops over Noah Brown in the depth chart, I do think that it's going to be worth considering. So, yeah, the main 2 options, obviously, Terry and Deebo and Zach Ertz at the tight end position are going to be your guys moving forward. But overall, ugly night for the Commanders. This was not what I expected. But again, Green Bay's defense is just that good. I mean, Jaden Daniels was under siege tonight. He was under siege tonight. It was not a good performance from Washington, but you got to give credit to Green Bay's defense. That defense is for real. I mean, that team is for real. So props to the Green Bay Packers. And let's get to their side of the ball. Migs, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. I will address your super chat after the recap. So Jordan Love has another solid night for fantasy. Again, not what I'm looking for yet, because I know what Jordan Love can provide, but we're getting closer. And I will say this, Jordan Love did miss throws tonight. Like he had a couple of borderline touchdown throws that he just overthrew, and several downfield throws that were just off target. So 19 of 31 sounds good, and it is good. Like, I don't want to trash Jordan Love. I'm a Jordan Love fan. But Jordan Love definitely left meat on the bone tonight. Like, he should have been over 300 yards easily in this game, and probably 3 touchdowns. But he did overthrow deep balls. He did miss guys. There were off-target throws, and he didn't get everything that he could have out of this game. Now, I'm not going to hold his feet to the fire because it still is a solid night. He had almost 300 yards throwing for 2 touchdowns. That's a good night in fantasy right there. But I will say that Jordan Love, I don't think we've even seen the potential yet. Because keep in mind, the potential of this guy is pretty awesome in fantasy football. Like, if we just go to fantasysportsroundup.com, fsroundup.com, go to the Green Bay Packers here, take a look at Jordan Love, and we just go to all stats, and you see what he did in 2023. I mean, this is a guy who legitimately has not only the rushing upside where he had 4 touchdowns that year, but it is a guy that threw for more than 4,000 yards. We're not there yet. We haven't seen the best of Jordan Love. We just have not seen the best of him. So I do think that Jordan Love, it is important to keep in mind that he looks good and you do need to give him props, but we haven't seen the best of him yet. And I'm convinced that as the season goes on, we will start to see better version of Jordan Love as a quarterback, both in the NFL and in fantasy football. Now, Josh Jacobs, he did what he does, right? He's the workhorse bell cow at the running back position, 23 carries, 84 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. Like, this is every day you can expect this from Josh Jacobs. So I don't really feel like there's much use to spend much time on him. He's a running back 1 in fantasy. Excellent player for your team to have. Now, where things got a little interesting tonight, and I wouldn't say what I'm about to tell you is not relevant today in fantasy football. What I'm about to tell you is something I could see developing down the line. Savion Williams is a player that most people don't even realize is on the team. And a lot of people don't even know who he is. And I got to tell you, you need to get acquainted with him. Because this is a player who carries 3rd-round draft capital for the Green Bay Packers. He is a wide receiver, but he is a very unique wide receiver. When they drafted him out of the University, Texas Christian, TCU, I remember thinking to myself, this is their replacement for Christian Watson. Now, they ended up signing Christian Watson, ironically, to a 1-year deal this week, but still, Savion Williams has a skill set that is similar to Christian Watson. A guy that is good out of the backfield and you could do a lot of things with in a lot of different formations. So Savion Williams took play behind, it was like a wildcat situation. He looked electric. He had room. He just slipped. And then he had another play where he looked electric out of the backfield as well. Savion Williams, however, is not involved in the passing game yet. So again, this is not anything that I'm telling you right now that is necessary for fantasy today. But I will say that I think it has the potential to develop, because if you just look at the history of Green Bay developing wide receivers, they're one of the best, if not the best, organizations in the entire league of developing wide receivers. So you want to keep an eye on Savion Williams. Again, no way, shape, or form telling you to go pick up Savion Williams off the waiver wire. Do not do that. It's not worth it. But I will say, have your eye on that situation. Matthew Golden also got a couple carries out of the backfield as well, and a couple targets, but still relatively uninvolved. And to this I say, I had questions before the game about Matthew Golden. And listen, this Green Bay offense is still just too unpredictable. They look very similar to how they looked last year with their target share. It's going to be all over the map. And Jaden Reed tonight doesn't come up on the stat line, but the reason you have to bring him to the table is that Jaden Reed had an excellent play. The one play that he made, it was a touchdown catch that got called back because of a holding. But the catch that he made was excellent. And in addition, he ripped his shoulder up on that same play. So we may not see Jaden Reed for a while. But I will say, the reason I'm saying it is because when Jaden Reed is out there, he is a guy that is consistently, if not the top target, a top 2 target in this offense. So if Jaden Reed misses time, it may force the Packers to start throwing the ball more to Matthew Golden, which could be a positive. But again, I'm still in this position right now with Matthew Golden where I would not call him a drop. Like, I would not tell you to drop Matthew Golden just yet. But I will say, like, we are at a point where Matthew Golden cannot go to your starting lineup until we know more about the breakdown, because he simply has flat out not separated himself, not only from the work in the Green Bay wide receiver room, but also just as a player. He's just not effective enough on his work. So Matthew Golden should not find his way to your starting lineup for the time being. Now, Tucker Kraft has a huge night, and this is like a game-changing, week-winning type of performance that a tight end gives you. So if you have Tucker Kraft tonight, congratulations. Because, I can't see a world where less than 90% of people who played Tucker Kraft tonight lose their matchup this week. That kind of performance from a tight end is electric. 6 catches, 124 yards for a touchdown. Now, again, the fact that Jayden Reed missed the majority of this game, I guarantee you played into this. Because what I just said about Jayden Reed, when he is in the game, he is one of their top targets. Well, they don't have him tonight for the majority of it. Therefore, Tucker Kraft becomes the top target. And Tucker Kraft is one of those guys you can always count on to be one of their top 3 targets at the very least. So, as long as Jayden Reed is out, Tucker Kraft already was one of the must-start tight ends, I would say, but even more so now. I would say Tucker Kraft is flirting with top 3 tight end territory, considering all the injuries at the position. So Tucker Kraft was excellent tonight, and I think his future is pretty bright. So bright that you might have to wear shades if you want to know the truth. Dontavian Wicks, what was interesting about this was that early in the game, he was definitely the most targeted player through the first drive alone. He was getting out routes to him. He looked like a guy that Jordan Love really wanted to have involved in the offense. He was one of the guys that Jordan Love missed a touchdown throw to tonight as well. So Wicks should have realistically had a pretty sweet night in fantasy. But of course, nobody's playing him. And what I would say to you is that if you consider adding Dontavian Wicks to your waiver wire, last year, we went through a very similar experience, except Dontavian Wicks had a much bigger day than he did today. And he proceeded to disappoint in one of the worst ways last year. So I would tell you, do not overreact on this one. Dontavian Wicks is not a guy that you can ever count on putting in your lineup. This is a guy who is a desperate flex, and every single week it's going to be different. It's going to be different in Green Bay, especially without Jayden Reed. So there will be players in Green Bay's offense that will pop off for big games. Tucker Kraft was the one tonight. Next week, it could very easily be Dontavian Wicks. It could very easily be Romeo Doubs. It could very easily be Matthew Golden. But the bottom line is Green Bay wide receivers proceed with caution. Because what you could see, if you just look objectively at the stats for all these guys, it's too close to call. 4 catches, 44 yards for Wicks. Malik Heath had 1 big catch. Luke Musgrave had 2 catches for 32 yards. Their backup tight end. Romeo Doubs had the touchdown catch. He gets in the end zone, people are happy. But he has 3 catches for 28 yards. Chris Brooks out of the backfield. 3 dump-off catches. And Matthew Golden didn't catch a single target. So my point in saying that is telling you to proceed with caution with these Green Bay wide receivers, because common sense would tell you Jordan Love is a quarterback you want a wide receiver attached to in fantasy, and I would agree with that, but we don't know who it is yet. So I've got no problem with rostering Green Bay wide receivers, but as far as playing them, be very, very careful. Especially now that we're about to see this Green Bay offense without Jayden Reed, who I would expect to at least miss 1 game with the shoulder injury. It's going to get messy, but I will tell you that the potential for one of these guys to break out is pretty high. And again, I can't give enough credit to the Green Bay defense tonight. Green Bay's defense was electric tonight, guys. They were absolutely insane. Micah Parsons, I just saw an alert on my phone that thank you, Jerry Jones chants were breaking out at Lambeau Field. That is really the impact that he is bringing to that team. He is bringing a consistent pass rush threat to that team. So that defense is legit. I would take much more away from Green Bay's defense than I would with Washington's offense. Washington's offense will be fine. They're going to be totally fine. But that defense in Green Bay, that's one that's going to give a lot of good teams in this league fits this year. A lot of good teams. So you need to always keep Green Bay in mind as a fantasy defense play. And if you have players on an opposing offense that is taking on Green Bay, watch out because Green Bay's defense is legit. So that was the breakdown. Like the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support. And I'm going to answer the couple super chats that we have in here as well. Just so you know, guys, usually this is always just a recap type of video after Thursday night. I don't usually answer many questions, but of course I will answer the super chats that I got. Adam Thompson, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Good to see you back here tonight. Bro, my opponent played Jaden Reed to try and cancel my points from Love. That backfired big time. Man, that's brutal because you know what the thing is that he was on track for a really good game. Like, he would have been pretty important in this game. And Jaden Reed, unfortunately, goes down right away. And you're even more lucky that they took that touchdown away because Jaden Reed, I think it was like a 50-yard touchdown. I mean, Jaden Reed made an incredible catch going out of bounds. Like, it was an incredible catch. So that's brutal. So glad I played Love tonight on my way to 2-0. Well, let's freaking go. Yeah, like I said, Jordan Love had a good night. But again, I can't stress this enough to people. We haven't even seen the best of Jordan Love. He was off target tonight on several throws down the field. He should have realistically had well over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air. Jordan Love missed throws tonight. And I guarantee you, that coach over there, Matt LaFleur, as intense as he is, he's going to point it out. And it's only going to make Jordan Love better. So Jordan Love is a guy that I would be really happy with if he was on my fantasy team. And I've got a bunch of him. So I am happy personally. But I will say we haven't seen the best of him. Appreciate the super chat. And Miggs, what's going on? Appreciate your super chat. One quarterback, Penix, Stroud, Tua, Daniel Jones, or Geno. Yeah, I think that I answered a question earlier tonight. I think it was from Adam. He was asking me about CJ tonight, and I said, listen, I actually think CJ could play a really good game this week. Like, Tampa's defense is weak. It's at home in Houston. It's a primetime game, and they're coming off a bad loss. I think CJ Stroud will come to play, and I think that this could be one of his better days in fantasy football. That being said, that offensive line is just something you cannot ignore. Like, that offensive line is absolutely atrocious. It's so bad. Penix this week, I think, has a tough week against Minnesota. I'd play Stroud over him. I'd play Stroud over Tua. I just cannot get behind any Miami options outside of Achane. Daniel Jones, I think, goes back down to earth this week because of Denver. And Geno Smith, ironically, I do think actually could have a good week. But I will say that this matchup is not my favorite with the Chargers. I think it could get ugly, and I think it could be one of those sloppier types of games that is a typical Pete Carroll division game where it's lower scoring and whoever wins is capitalizing on mistakes of the other team. So for me, I'm going to go with Stroud because I believe in Stroud this week, and I also would say that the only closest option is Geno, and I think that the game script will favor Stroud more than it would favor Geno. Appreciate the super chat. So, like the video, subscribe to the channel on your way out tonight. That was the recap of tonight's game. And guys, if you want to get a full team breakdown from me, you can go to FS Roundup, and when you sign up for the premium subscription tier, you will get a full team breakdown from me after your 12-day free trial ends, guys. So if you just signed up in hopes of getting a team breakout, thank you. I appreciate you becoming a member over here of the FS Roundup team. But you will have to wait until after your free trial is over for me to break down that team of yours. And I'll even do it on YouTube, but I will definitely send an email, very in-depth breaking down the team. But yeah, for a team breakdown from me, go to FS Roundup and join the premium subscription tier. And all the stats that I go through are always free on FS Roundup. So love you guys. I'll see you guys on tomorrow's videos. Peace out.